Hello, everybody. Let's do it. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. Thank you for joining me. The footage you're seeing here is yet more of the drone footage of the devastation in Gaza. I've been bringing you this on and off for the last several live streams because I feel like we should actually see what the hell our bombs, American-made bombs, our handy craftsmanship is doing around the world, but specifically right now in Gaza. And this is what it's doing. It's absolutely destroying a society, obliterating it. And this doesn't mean the mainstream media will never show you some of these images, but it's rare. It's very rare for them to show you what's actually going on in Gaza. That even though the propaganda has been less effective this time around than perhaps past assaults, past U.S. assaults on various countries, but this one has been a little less effective. We've gotten through it a little bit more. The mainstream media has really been unable to try and continue to put forward the idea that this is not just mass human atrocities, just crimes against humanity on an unbelievable scale, at least in terms of time frame. I don't mean that this many innocent people have not been killed before, but this time frame is rare, is very rare to kill this many innocent people in such a short amount of time. And anyway, I'm going to be getting to that. I'm going to get to the definition, the dictionary definition of genocide, because I feel like that is important. It has become an ongoing discussion, both on social media and in academic circles and in the mainstream media and even at the UN, as to whether this amounts to genocide, like the dictionary definition of genocide. And that is an important thing that we're going to get into here in a moment. But let's look at just the amount, the sheer percentage of destruction here. This is devastation of northern Gaza comparable to Allied bombing campaigns of German cities. Now, keep in mind, these were long-term bombing campaigns as opposed to just a few weeks like it is in Gaza. But anyway, in northern Gaza, 68% of buildings, this is the percentage of buildings that have been destroyed. In northern Gaza, 68%. In Hamburg, Germany, during the Allied bombing of Hamburg, Germany, it was 75% of buildings. And in Cologne, it was 61%. And in Dresden, we of course know about the firebombing of Dresden that caused so much horror and destruction. And that was 59% of buildings were destroyed in that. In Gaza, northern Gaza, they're already at 68%. As most of you know, they told everyone to flee to southern Gaza. Many people have heeded that warning, and now Israel is bombing southern Gaza. They basically told them where to flee to so that Israel could continue to bomb them there. Israel pretended that it would be safe there when it clearly is not. I mentioned that the Gaza Health Ministry says 17,177 Palestinians have been killed and more than 46,000 wounded due to Israeli attacks since October 7th. 46,000 people and 17,000 killed. Nearly 50% of those killed have been children. Footage published online shows, or maybe it's over 50%. I can't quite recall. Footage published online shows Israeli forces just in the past day or so detaining dozens of Palestinian men who were at a UN facility. They've been stripped down to their underwear and they are being taken away. That's in northern Gaza, where they will likely be tortured. We know about the large-scale torture that has gone on in the prisons, Israeli prisons of Palestinians, and that went on before October 7th. As I've often mentioned, before October 7th, there were already 5,000 hostages, 5,000 political prisoners that Israel had put in prison, not including the open-air prison of Gaza, but actually prison buildings. It was already 5,000. Since October 7th, they've over doubled that. They've kidnapped 6,000 or 7,000 more. But let's get into to what is the definition. And later, by the way, I have more video coming. I have video of an American U.S. general talking about how exactly we steal resources overseas, or at least the goals of stealing resources overseas. Also, I will talk more about the fact that today is Global Free Julian Assange Day. And yeah, a lot more stuff coming up. So I want to get into the actual definition. So, and ironically, I'm bringing this definition to you from the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust website, but they're getting their definition from the UN. So this is not just their definition. This is a widely accepted definition of genocide. And like I said, ironically, this has been put on the Holocaust Museum website. And if any of you are new to watching my stuff, being anti-Zionist, criticizing Israeli policies is not anti-Semitic. In fact, I am an anti-Zionist Jew, and that is a thing, and you can be that. And in fact, right now, it is the only just and humanist point of view to have right now. Anyway, from the Holocaust Museum website, they give the definition. Let's see. The convention defines genocide as any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. So if you have the intent to destroy in whole or in part, you do not have to kill every single member of a group in order to commit genocide. I assume most of you knew that, because otherwise the Holocaust would not have counted as genocide, right? But of course, if you just intend to kill part of a specific group simply for being of a certain nation or ethnicity or race or religious group, to shrink it down to terms which are not in this definition. Basically, if you're trying to kill people just for who they are, rather than for the fact that they're fighting you, meaning you're not trying to kill soldiers, you're trying to kill just innocent people for who they are, that's essentially genocide. Now, that was my reductive definition, but let me continue with their definition. Committing any of the following acts: killing members of the group. Let's see. Would you give that one a check right now in Gaza? Would you say that they've killed members of a group? Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of a group. Would you give that one a check? You think? Do you think they've caused any bodily or mental harm to members of Gaza, to members of Palestine? Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Cutting off the water, destroying the medical systems, cutting off the gasoline so that they can't have electricity, thereby cutting off the electricity as well as the gasoline so there can't be backup generators, cutting off clean water, cutting off the ability to actually live in any kind of security or comfort in any building. All of those fit this part of the definition: deliberately inflicting on a group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction. All of that is what that's designed to do. It's designed to make life impossible for them. Next one on the list: imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. Well, this one is now obviously true, hence the attacks on the hospitals, cutting off the electricity to hospitals, cutting off the medicines to hospitals. They have made it nearly impossible or incredibly difficult for anyone to give birth in Gaza right now. And yes, the irony of the fact that killing babies has been used as propaganda. In fact, it was even used as propaganda against Hamas, saying Hamas killed babies on October 7th, but there's been no evidence of that. In fact, there's been evidence that the IDF killed babies on October 7th, but it's used as propaganda. And yet here it is now being actually done by Israel across Gaza, where literally there are photos, and I can't really look at them, of babies that have been murdered because the electricity has been turned off to hospitals and the incubators shut down. So Israel is absolutely trying to make it impossible to give birth. forcibly transferring, next on the list, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Now, this one is perhaps the one on the list that Israel is partaking in the least. However, they have kidnapped thousands of innocent children and they put them in prison. So I would count that as relocating children from one group to another. Because when you take children from Palestinians and lock them up in prison, that still counts as relocating them. So let's see. We've got check, 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 check. And keep in mind, it only has to be one of these. So if you think one of these is true, then they're committing genocide. But so far, it seems to be all of the list of genocide. Then it continues, a number of specific actions have been deemed to be punishable under this convention. They are 1, genocide; 2, conspiracy to commit genocide; 3, direct and public incitement to commit genocide; 4, attempt to commit genocide; and 5, complicity in genocide. So even if they were not committing genocide, but they were putting out public incitement to genocide, they would still be guilty of genocide under this convention. And this speaks to all of the public statements that have been made by Israeli officials about Palestinians being vermin. These are public statements by Israeli officials. Palestinians also, they've said that they don't deserve to live. They've said that they're all animals. They've said they publicly have, Israeli ministers have publicly tweeted that that Palestine, oh God, left my mind. Has no innocence, right? That Gaza has no innocent people. So if there's no innocent people, that's trying to justify genocide. So you are inciting people to commit genocide and trying to commit genocide and justify it. So they also check off all these boxes on other things they've done, such as conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and public incitement, attempt to commit genocide, complicity in genocide. Every check, there's a check at every box of the entire definition of genocide was adopted in 1946, right after the Holocaust, right? It was actually adopted in order to stop things like the Holocaust from happening again. This is 1946. The General Assembly of the United Nations resolved that genocide was a crime under international law, and it was approved and ratified as a convention of the prevention and punishment of the crime of genocide. So it was ratified in 1948. The convention defines genocide as, and that's what I just went through. So, and this is on, again, the Holocaust Memorial Fund website, Memorial Day Trust website, as to what is genocide. And Israel has checked off every goddamn box on that list. They are by the book, by the dictionary definition, by the legally accepted definition of genocide, every single one. And you'll notice nowhere in this list does it say, depending on what's been done to you, like you can't be convicted of genocide if you people wronged you or if you got hurt. That's not how it works. It doesn't matter what was done to you. Even if you wanted to sit here and say that Hamas somehow had the ability to inflict on Israel what Israel's inflicting on Gaza, it wouldn't matter, which they don't, not at all. It wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter what was done to you. It doesn't matter what was done to you generations ago during World War II. None of that factors into whether you're committing genocide right now. I'm sorry, it doesn't. But it would be hilarious if it isn't so dark that this is on the Holocaust website and yet Israel fits every single point of the definition of genocide. And I did look at one article to try and surmise or try and understand what those who defend this are saying as to why this is not genocide. And it's tough to find them actually willing to address it in a logical manner. Most of them are just going, yeah, they October 7th. They just yell October 7th and then they scurry away. Like, it doesn't, most of them are not making any legitimate debates as to why this is not genocide. But I read an article in Vox, which most of you know is a neoliberal dumpster fire of an outlet. But and they tried to, and they went through this exact definition that I just gave you. And they tried to say that, well, what's hard to figure out is the intent, because you need intent for really for legally, depending on. But here's the thing: unlike some past genocides or crimes against humanity, you don't have to struggle hard to figure out intent. There are plenty of public statements from Israeli higher ups, Israeli ministers, people in government saying that that there's no innocent Gazans, meaning you can wipe out the entire place, meaning you can commit genocide, saying that all of them should leave and go to Egypt and everything, which is forced migration and ethnic cleansing. Netanyahu has said things publicly. Days before October 7th, Netanyahu held up a map in front of the UN, a map of the Middle East that had Palestine, Gaza, West Bank all erased from the map. So you actually don't need to struggle to figure out the intent of the Israeli government. It's very obvious, and they have said it multiple times, and I don't think it's a struggle to figure that out at all. This is a clear-cut, by the book genocide, and those trying to say otherwise are just they've lost their moral core. They've lost their moral compass, if they ever had one. I mean, most of them are just, most of the higher ups in the U.S. government, et cetera, are just sociopaths. So, but there are those in government. They're not the ones at the top, but they work at various places in government that are trying to get Biden to shift policies and stop allowing all this, but not just allowing it. We ship them weapons. I mean, we've shipped 15,000. A lot of them they're covering up. We don't actually know the number, but we know at least 15,000 bombs to Israel since October 7th to be used in this ongoing assault. So we are facilitating it. But here is Mint Press reporting that over 40 interns who work in the White House, a letter has been sent to Biden that says, quote, "We, the undersigned fall 2023 White House and Executive Office of the President interns, will no longer remain silent on the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people." The White House staff has sent a letter to Biden calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Again, these are the younger people. These are the people who have not worked their way to the top of the system, meaning they have not proven themselves to be sociopathic enough yet. And it's possible that for putting their name on this, they will be proving themselves the opposite, and it will harm their ability to work their way up the ladder. But who cares? This is a goddamn genocide. You got to stand up and say something. But this is kind of unheard of. I mean, considering all the death and destruction that the United States is involved in around the world, and yet many people in government have always continued to just further it, to facilitate it, to be a part of it. Before October 7th, right, there was still apartheid state in Israel. There was still the killing of thousands of Palestinians. There was still the mass destruction of Yemen and the killing of tens of thousands in Yemen with U.S. arms and U.S. help. There was the thousands killed in Syria via our economic war. There's thousands killed in Ukraine via our proxy war. All of that stuff. These staff did not send letters to the president saying what you're doing is wrong, it's repulsive, and we're opposed to it. And so this is a step in the other direction, which is impressive. This is these people being pushed to the brink. And it also, if Biden loses this next election, this will be why. It's, he might have lost it anyway, but I think he's putting the nail in his coffin here for, and let's be honest, he probably did get in the coffin a while ago, and they've just had his body kind of reanimated with nanobots. But this is putting the nail in the coffin for his election. I don't care who else is running opposed to him. Unless the one thing that could harm whoever runs opposed to him is if they agree with all of this genocide against Gaza, which of course Donald Trump does. But anyway, he is whatever chance there was that this guy could be electable. It seems that he is just letting it all go. Now, he was never electable in my book. If you hear anything that I've ever said about him, in fact, long before he was elected president, I was telling you how awful he is, how he's a warmonger, how he's funded by credit card companies and big banks, how he's put forward every pro police brutality bill that the Congress ever had. Anyway, how racist he is. I've been telling you that for the years. So I never viewed him as electable, but some people did, I guess. All right. I want to show you something else, which is showing how this genocide, this assault is so aggressive that it is getting through that wall of propaganda put forward by the mainstream media. I'm not saying it gets through all the time, but it's getting through some of the time. And here's an example from CNN just the other day. Caitlin Collins, who, if you know who she is, does wonderful work manufacturing consent for war and death and destruction around the world. So it's not like this is some unique lefty peacenik voice on CNN. No, this is a standard CNN war hawk shill, and yet here you go.
Tonight, CNN has learned that former Hamas hostages had a contentious meeting with Israeli officials today. One of them telling the Israeli security cabinet, quote, "What I see on TV scares me a lot. I see Israeli bombings there, and you have no idea where the captives are. I was in a house surrounded by explosions. We slept in the tunnels, and we feared not Hamas, but that Israel might kill us, and then it would have been Hamas killed you." Tonight, CNN has learned that
so this is also saying something important about the hostage situation. Hamas, it seems, has largely, and I'm not one of these people who's just a full-on apologist and going to say it's fine to take hostages because they're treating them all right. But if you look at the propaganda, we've been told, oh, they just, they torture them and it's all just rape and horror show. In fact, it seems like Hamas, which this would make sense for their political ends, has been treating the hostages as well as they're able to without, access to a lot of things. And many of those who have been released have said they endorsed a ceasefire. Maybe even almost all of those who released have endorsed a ceasefire. But this is talking about a meeting where these are hostages that spent a month or 2 months. You said there was no sound on that clip. Could anybody else hear it? The clip? Anyway, let me know whether you heard the clip. I was going to replay it. So, it was silent for everyone? That's weird. I mean, it is a low volume clip, but let's try it one more time. Maybe I'll hold my mic up to it and I'll try that. See if that works any better.
Tonight, CNN has learned that former Hamas hostages had a contentious meeting with Israeli officials today. One of them telling the Israeli security cabinet, quote, "What I see on TV scares me a lot. I see Israeli bombings there, and you have no idea where the captives are. I was in a house surrounded by explosions. We slept in the tunnels, and we feared not Hamas, but that Israel might kill us, and then it would have been Hamas killed you."
So, again, yeah, the low volume is just in the clip. Sorry. But it seems Hamas has treated them as best they can. And those who've been released want a ceasefire because guess what? The only way those hostages are going to live is by a ceasefire because Israel's bombing so aggressively that they are killing hostages. And it seems if they continue at this rate, they will kill all the hostages. Not because Hamas chose to kill them, but because Israel's bombing the shit out of them. So you have these hostages being released to Israel and then going and meeting with Netanyahu and saying, for the love of God, stop bombing. But as I brought to you many times, Israel has a directive called the Hannibal Directive, where if someone's taken hostage, they kill everyone. They kill the hostages, they kill the people around them. They don't care. That is their plan, and that's their goal, and that's what they're doing. You can look it up if you want. Now, they won't say that publicly, but it's very clear that that's what's going on. And that's what they did on October 7th. And, I continue to read about what happened on October 7th. I continue to try and cobble together all the information I can that is not the propaganda that you've heard on the mainstream. And, it's undeniable that Hamas knocked down the border and ran in and took hostages. But there's increasing evidence that the IDF just killed so many people. Yes, they killed Hamas fighters. They also killed just about anyone who was nearby. And that is why, and I brought this to you as well a few days ago, that is why the Israel has said that they are taking the cars that were burned and everything, and they're shredding cars. I don't know what that shredder looks like. I assume like you have an office shredder. It's like 100 times that size, and they just put a car into it. But they're shredding the cars that were involved in October 7th and burying them somewhere where no one will know where they are. Which, I'm sorry, every time I say it, I laugh, because I like the idea that, and they say they're doing it for environmental reasons. We're shredding all the evidence. And by the way, for those of you wondering, I did look up what happened to all the, so this is Israel shredding all the evidence of October 7th that they can, of what went down, getting rid of whatever they can. And I did look up what they did with all the millions and millions of tons of debris from 9/11. And there are a lot of places you can find that, 22,000 or 7,000. I can't remember the number exactly, but it was a few thousand tons of debris is used for memorials and things. And they show images of the steel bars that are used in memorials in various places, many of them in New Jersey and New York, some in California, but they've been shipped around the world. And you read all these articles about how neat, in a sad way, but how neat that these things were put into memorials and things around. But if you compare the amount of debris that was put into memorials, it's like, again, a few thousand tons. I think it might have been 7,000 tons of debris that was put into, it was just shipped around the world, kept and things. There was like over 1 million tons of debris from 9/11. So it's a tiny, tiny percentage. All the rest was processed for a landfill and like completely buried and incinerated and everything, and you could never see it again. So I'm just saying, they're carefully like, we don't really want people looking into what went down here. Okay, so I wanted to remind you of this because it is really important right now, as Israel is committing crimes against humanity in such a large way against Palestinians, that Israel has nuclear bombs, and they have never technically admitted that. And this is important because countries with nuclear bombs, also, I forgot. Let me just pause here and say, can everybody please hit the thumbs up button? It takes you like 2 seconds, and it really does help get more eyes on this live stream. And if you're on YouTube or Rumble, click the follow, or anywhere, click the follow tab. It's free to do that. So, it takes you 3 seconds, and it's free. And it helps grow my show. It helps grow this platform. It helps grow what I'm trying to do here. So if you can just donate those 2 seconds that it takes you to click thumbs up or follow, that would be amazing. Please do that now. Anyway, all the countries in the world that have nuclear weapons, they are either carefully inspected and they've agreed to non-proliferation treaties, etc. Yes, Russia and the U.S. are pulling out of a lot of those, but they have existed. And there's inspections to keep tabs on these nuclear weapons so that all humans don't incinerate ourselves. That would be good. I'm not saying all these things work. The U.S. has lost many nukes. We cover that a lot on my podcast, Government Secrets. By the way, if you like the historical stuff I do, where I reference things in history that are horrifying, like the fact that that Israel has nuclear weapons they've never admitted to, Government Secrets would be the podcast to check out. Anyway, all those countries, we have inspections, we have non-proliferation treaties, etc., except for a country like North Korea, where they're completely walled off. But still, they publicly test their nuclear weapons. They don't deny they have them. Israel is the only country that I know of that has been fully allowed to create nuclear weapons. It's like an open secret, and they don't have to abide by any non-proliferation treaties because we don't have any. And yet, and they don't have to abide by any inspections either because we don't have any. And it is completely unhinged, considering the damage that nuclear weapons can do, to just have one. And what the hell does that say about the control they have over other countries, that no one is allowed to inspect their weapons or even acknowledge that they exist for the most part? But I will bring to you, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this whole issue of Israel and nuclear weapons, I'll bring you this Guardian article from, I believe it was 2014. So yeah, almost 10 years ago. Guardian article, The Truth About Israel's Secret Nuclear Arsenal. And by the way, this article is from 2014. Fun fact, this is around the time that the Guardian was captured. The Guardian would publish things like this. They would publish things against the fossil fuel industry. And around 2014, 2015, they were captured by larger corporate interests, and they've stopped writing articles like this. They're not writing articles about Israel's secret nuclear arsenal anymore, I don't believe. Anyway, this article details the fact that this is 10 years ago, but they say Israel has an estimated 80 warheads. And the fact that Israel has a nuclear arsenal has been accidentally admitted, I think, once in like a Pentagon papers that they didn't realize they needed to redact or something like that. So it's been admitted once or twice in Pentagon papers. It's also been revealed by the former Speaker of the Knesset. Let me see if I can find that. Well, can't find it quickly. Anyway, the former Speaker of the Knesset, named Abraham Berg, who, meaning the head of Israel's parliament, after he was done in government, he said Israel had nuclear weapons, and he said it's childish to pretend, to play this game like we don't. It's time to reveal it. Now, for that, he was called a traitor, and some people wanted him to be prosecuted for treason. But either way, it has been admitted. It's a public secret. But they're the only country that's allowed to do this, that's allowed to just have nuclear weapons and, not acknowledge it, not have them inspect it at all, not sign any non-proliferation, anything. Furthermore, in order to supposedly stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, which I've heard a lot of very reliable sources that say that Iran has never tried to get nuclear weapons because they don't believe in mass, weapons of mass destruction, basically killing large-scale numbers of innocent civilians. So they don't want a nuclear weapon. But even if they were, Israel has assassinated many of their scientists, many Iranian scientists, like publicly, like gunning them down in the streets of Iran. They've assassinated multiple Iranian nuclear scientists who were working on nuclear energy. So Israel's not acknowledging that they have nuclear weapons while they're murdering nuclear energy scientists in Iran. And again, not held accountable in any way. All right. I am going to move on from Israel and their genocide daily for a moment. Let's get to the fact that today is the global Free Assange Day. This video posted by Stella Assange. I did interview her earlier this year, I think in January of this year. His wife, who's worked tirelessly to try and free him. I've also done multiple interviews with John Shipton, Assange's father, who is a wonderful man who tours around the world trying to get his son freed. But this global day for free Assange, I think, considering the day is almost over, if you can just tweet something, post something on all the platforms, if you still use the Facebooks, if you still use the Instagrams, post something to remind people about Assange. The last I've heard, besides the fact that he's been tortured in prison for something like 13, 14 years now, because in the Ecuadorian embassy, he was in basically one room for 7 years. So that's also a form of torture, and it's also a form of imprisonment. But he's been tortured for 13, 14 years now for revealing the truth, for giving us the truth, for giving you and me the truth, something we should all support, for revealing to us the truth. And we should continue the fight to free him. The last update I've heard is that basically the U.S. and Britain could extradite him any day. And everyone who studies his case and is connected with him in one way or another says that when they extradite him, you will not know. There will not be a big, hey, we're getting ready to extradite Assange and fly him to the United States to be tortured the rest of his life. There will not be a big announcement. There will not be a fanfare as he's driven to the airport. It will be done in the dead of night. And you and I will not know it's happened until he is already in a prison in America. That is the next step for them. And it could happen any day. I mean, I certainly hope it doesn't. But I just want you to realize how dire this is, that you could wake up tomorrow. We could all wake up tomorrow or any day and just read an article or see a newscast about how Assange is in high security prison, max security prison in the United States, probably in Virginia. And they will then try him in a complete kangaroo court where he is not basically allowed to have any evidence, not really allowed to prepare properly for a trial, not really allowed to have any witnesses on his behalf. Most of it or almost all of it will be completely covered up from the press and from you and me. So we may get daily reports, but we won't be seeing what's going on behind those closed doors where he's told he's not allowed to bring forward any evidence. That's the type of trial it'll be. And it will be 100% conviction rate. There will be no chance of him not being convicted of anything and everything the government wants, because that's how they do these type of trials. But also on top of all that, I must remind you that he's not an American citizen and never operated WikiLeaks from America. So this would be the first time ever that the United States grabs a journalist, a publisher overseas who is not an American citizen and just locks him up for freedom of speech, but he's not even a goddamn citizen. He's not even a citizen. He's never operated from the United States. WikiLeaks is not a United States entity. There is nothing to connect. So when and if they do this, it will be the United States saying we have the right to declare anyone around the world has violated our laws, and we can grab you, we can black bag you in the dead of night and put you in our prisons. It is basically saying that the U.S. owns global law, and everyone in the world must abide by whatever the hell America wants to do. It's pure insanity, pure and utter fascism. So I wanted to remind you that on this, the global day of free Assange, and just keep up the fight. Don't stop talking about it. Okay, I'm about to bring you a video of Laura Richardson, U.S. Southern Command General for the United States military, talking about on video at a press conference, talking about how the U.S. needs to steal resources from other countries. It's kind of, normally they don't say the quiet part this loud. I'm going to bring you that video. I'm also going to bring you fairly new, at least it's newly brought to my attention. I don't think the document's been available that long, but I could be wrong. But I'm also going to bring you evidence. It's not even evidence. It's the American government, the U.S. government, decades ago, admitting in their own documents that we did not need to drop the atomic bombs on Japan, that we did not need to kill hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians it was for no reason. I mean, the real reason was to scare the Soviet Union so that Russia would be afraid to, go up against the capitalist world. That was the real reason. But the idea of the idea they tell us, the belief we're supposed to have, is that we did it to end the war. So I'm going to bring you paperwork from the U.S. government saying that's not true, that the U.S. did not need to drop the atomic bombs. Okay, all of that and possibly more, depending on how much time we have, is at rumble.com/Lee Camp. Join me over there. It is free to join me over there, rumble.com/Lee Camp. Join me over there also on Locals. If you're on my Locals, you guys make this show possible. Thanks for being part of my community on Locals. You actually make it possible for me to do this show at all. So you can become a member of Locals at leecamp.net. If you're watching on Rumble, you can also click the Join Lee button. It's 38 cents an episode, and it is the only reason I'm able to do this show. So join me for free at rumble.com/Lee Camp. And I bid the others farewell. Although it's one of these awkward farewells where it takes me a minute. You know, it's kind of like when you say goodbye to a friend and then you don't realize you're walking the same direction. Man, I will see you soon. And then, oh, you're going this way too. Oh, okay. Well.